Right, okie dokie, this should be working. So, last couple of Hamlet extracts and questions just to get you thinking and looking at them again. So, sorry, one of the ones that people were interested in and wanted was just Rosencrantz and Guildenstern bits. I've taken this bit from the start of Act 2, Scene 2. I think it would be not the most pleasant extract they could ever give you. So it's right from the start of Act 2, Scene 2, and I'm going to take it up to thou still hast been the father of good news, kind of coming in there, okay? So what I would recommend you do, although you can just watch it through and I'll kind of talk through you straight away, I would have a think, it's okay, so what would I talk about? What would I kind of go into if I was going to do this extract? So before listening any further, maybe pause and kind of go back over. But if you don't want to, you don't want to, okay? I mean, some of you won't even listen to this, so there we go, commitment. Right, if I was looking at this extract, my first read through, the first thing that I'm doing is drawing out my kind of lines of argument, okay? So this is early on in the play. It's part of the rising action. Claudius is still in control. He's still in power. But Hamlet's madness, we've had kind of introduced to us through the voice of Ophelia. We, through the dramatic irony, know the motivation and the cause of that madness. We also have an awareness around kind of Claudius and his actions. This is the first scene introducing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So we've got their kind of characterisation. Yes, we're in the rising action, but there's, an aspect of kind of exposition here in terms of kind of characterising them for the first time. And then we've got the lifting of the kind of pressure from external threats to Denmark. Norway's ambassadors, or the ambassadors to Norway, have returned, and it appears to be kind of good news. So I want to think about my lines of argument because I know I'm not going to be able to talk about everything. So I'm going to focus on Rosencrantz plus Guildenstern, characterisation, and their kind of backgrounds. I'm going to focus on kind of Hamlet's madness and the way that that's kind of depicted through it. And I'm going to look at Claudius and the way that he's kind of depicted in control at this point, the way that his position is seemingly kind of solid, with the slight undermining of Hamlet's madness. So kind of position within it, okay? They're going to be my kind of three main points. So in my introduction, I situate it in the rising action. I talk about this is an important extract. It introduces Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's about developing Hamlet's madness. We haven't seen it directly yet. And suggesting that at the moment, Claudius is in a relatively stable position. I just introduced those briefly in my introduction, and then I'm going to make a bit more of it, okay? So we then want to kind of pick out various features and think about where they go. So this is going to end up looking like a thorough mess, but tough, okay? So we've got the initial kind of exclamatory, welcome dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the suggestion of kind of Claudius as still revelling in his position as he kind of invites Rosencrantz and Guildenstern into the court. So if we're talking about here, you're talking about the kind of exclamatory, the introduction of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. You might have this with kind of Claudius' position or the initial kind of characterisation. Moreover, that we did long to see you, the need we have to use you to provoke a hasty sending. So with this, again, you might talk about it in terms of kind of power structures, that Claudius has a need to use them. So you talk about what that kind of connotes to you. You potentially link it in with kind of, again, Claudius, his authority. But you might talk about the fact that there is maybe an underlying anxiety caused by Hamlet. You've got our hasty sending. Now, that does suggest that, there's a sudden need, there's some kind of threat, there's some kind of anxiety coming into it. It then kind of moves on. You could also talk about things like, much did we long to see you. The idea of kind of Claudius's false flattery. They've longed to see them for a long time, but whether he even knows who they are. Various adaptations, don't talk about adaptations in this question, but various adaptations kind of suggest that he doesn't know which one's which between them. So it then moves on. You've got bits to do with kind of Hamlet's madness being introduced. So remember, you haven't seen this yet in person with Hamlet. We've only had it described to us. This is another act where it kind of builds up this madness. Something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation? So call it Sith, nor the exterior, nor the inward man resembles that it was. So you can talk about Hamlet's kind of metaphorical transformation, the implication that he's kind of changed completely. It's the interior and the exterior. So he's changed kind of in terms of look physically, but also there's the implication of a kind of mental change and transformation. And you've got the tense here. Tense is important. It doesn't resemble what it was. In the present tense, Hamlet is changed. He's altered. He's no longer the kind of put together prince that he once was. So that, again, it's going to depend how you do it. There's no necessarily right or wrong answer. You might link something like that with Hamlet's madness. You might look at the way in which there's an underlying threat to Claudius' position through it. It depends how you choose to kind of sell it up. What it should be, more than his father's death, that thus has put on him so much from the understanding of himself, I cannot dream of. I entreat you both, the beings of you so young days brought up with him, and Sith so neighboured to his youth and behaviour, that you vouchsafe to the rest here in our court some little time, so by your companies to draw him on to pleasures, and to gather so much from his occasion what you may glean, whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus, that open lies within our remedy. So this is quite a long little kind of sentence and section, but it covers a couple of different things that you could kind of link in here. So Claudius here is presenting himself as kind of a good king. He's magnanimous. You get the metaphor of kind of the remedy, the idea that he wants to cure Hamlet. He's acting in a kind of altruistic fashion by bringing them in. Overall, there's a sense that, again, it's kind of, I wouldn't say hyperbolic, but I cannot dream of. I suppose the modal in there is kind of the key point. Claudius, at this point, doesn't understand what is driving Hamlet's madness. So Hamlet has changed, he's transformed, he's, a threat to a point, but Claudius doesn't, he doesn't realise that Hamlet has had this kind of revelation passed on to him. So you could explore that. The idea here, again, he's flattering Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, guiding them, but he is the one who is instructing them. So it's all about the creation of a dramatic irony so that we know when they meet Hamlet that they are not there for kind of altruistic purposes. So I entreat you both. It's got a kind of more, it's softened, it's flattery, but it's got kind of an imperative tone that goes with it. You could talk about kind of the background that's kind of built up, the way in which the recollections of the past are brought in, being of so younger days brought up with him. It suggests that they have known Hamlet for a long time. They are akin to Horatio, and they know him from his youth, and therefore they may be able to bring out what Claudius cannot. Some little time, so by your companies, to draw him on to pleasure. Again, just the metaphorical, draw him on to pleasures. Allow him to enjoy himself so that they may kind of glean. Again, it's another metaphor. It basically means gather from it. It's kind of corn cutting metaphor, but we won't go into that in massive detail. What afflicts him. So, again, there is a sense that Hamlet is disjointed in the court, but also Claudius is in control. There's no sense of him kind of filled with anxiety and worry about this. At the moment, he maintains control. You've got the alignment with Gertrude, with Claudius at this stage. Again, good gentleman, he hath much talked of you, suggesting that Hamlet, in his background, again, he's mentioned Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to his mother. There are not two men living to whom he more adheres. So, sort of stuck to. If it will please you to show us so much gentry and goodwill as to expand your time with us a while for the supply and profit of our hope, your visitation receive much thanks as fits a king's remembrance. So again, Gertrude, like Claudius, is commanding, she is exerting her influence to guide Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but it's conditional. If it will please you to show so much gentry and goodwill. It's not do this, it's sort of if you choose to do this, your visitation shall receive such thanks as fits the king's remembrance. So there's a certainty of reward brought in here as she encourages them along the same path. As it kind of goes down, you then get the voice of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern brought in, and there is this sense of them as seeking Claudius and Gertrude's approval. That is what's kind of driving their actions. They flatter in return. So, both your majesties might, by the sovereign power you have of us, put your dread pleasures into command than to entreat. So they're basically saying, well, you could have just told us what to do. Instead, you've kind of entreated us to do it. You've asked in a kind of more soft way. So they might. There's this kind of possibility. You could have just told us. They are powerful individuals. They dread pleasures. Dread in this case means power. It doesn't mean like dread as in horror at it. More into command than entreaty. But we both obey. And here give up ourselves in the full bent to lay our service freely at your feet to be commanded. So again, both of these characters align with each other. Despite the fact that you've got a sense of them up here and here of their kind of closeness with Hamlet, they align with the request of Claudius and Gertrude. So they put themselves in their power. They both obey, and they give up themselves in full bent. So this metaphor becomes important, laying their service at their feet to be commanded. And again, this is all about building up dramatic irony in the scene that follows. And then we get this bit. So, thanks Rosencrantz and gentle Guildenstern. Thanks Guildenstern and gentle Rosencrantz. Again, this is the bit that kind of plays up that suggests this is kind of empty flattery. The fact that Claudius says it one way round and then you get Gertrude saying it the other way round is potentially a kind of correction that suggests that Claudius really doesn't know these two men. He is, in reality, more disinterested. But there is an urgency, especially in Gertrude. I beseech you instantly to visit my too much changed son. So again, that suggestion is too much changed. You've got the intensifier here. You've got imperative. Go, some of you, and bring these gentlemen where Hamlet is, to the wider court. And the adverb here, again, just suggesting the quickness going with it. Heavens make our presence and practices helpful to him, pleasant and helpful to him. So again, the alignment, they're going to do exactly what they're told to do, going with it. You then get them exiting and Polonius coming on. And again, if you've got this extract, this last bit, it's about kind of suggesting again that stability. Polonius as an important kind of figure of the court, as a functionary of the court. The ambassadors from Norway, my good lord, are joyfully returned. So again, there's a sense of kind of Claudius in power, in control. These ambassadors that were there to deal with the threat are now joyfully returned. So the adverb suggesting that this is a moment of celebration. And this kind of hyperbolic image of Polonius. He's been the father of good news. You could talk about it as a metaphor as well. But just that idea that he is providing a kind of good news practice here. So with something like this, as I say, you're trying to link back to these kind of different bits. There's no right or wrong answer as long as you're making relevant arguments. So certain bits will fit with different bits here. You might have dread pleasures with Claudius in power, but his kind of, it's only a surface level interest. The idea that he wants to kind of create this remedy is a bit kind of dubious. And that this kind of idea that he longed to see them is rendered slightly kind of ironic. You've got various bits around Hamlet, his transformation, the exterior and the inward man, the kind of, antithetical elements, or the inside-outside. You've got, Hamlet's madness. Down here, too much change, so that kind of can go up here as well. To his kind of madness too. Lots of different bits that kind of suggest that there is a concern and anxiety around him, but that he's not necessarily a threat at this point. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern presented as kind of, again, close to Hamlet. And then kind of down here, we might go, where are we, Gertrude up here. But at the same time, their kind of alignment with the king and queen, building that dramatic irony for the scene that follows. And your conclusion will be, that it's all setting up this anxiety around Hamlet, him as disjointed, but that's something that they're then going to kind of build on, essentially. Okay, that Hamlet's madness will be revealed to us more directly and increasingly across the play. Whilst they're in control of his madness to a point here, his madness becomes something that threatens the state. And then they might give you a question something like this. Many of the actions of the play are driven by a genuine desire to help Hamlet. Discuss how far you agree with this view. Remember, the question is always linked to the extract. So you could look at how, on a surface level, because remember, you're not trying to polarise the argument, you can argue the middle grounds. There seems to be a genuine desire to help him, but the dramatic irony, certain bits suggest that Claudius is not as interested as he might appear in serving Hamlet. And you look across the play elsewhere, figures like Polonius claim to be helping to draw out Hamlet's madness. You look at Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who claim in this that they want to be useful to him, but actually they're more interested in that kind of social climbing. The genuine desire to help Hamlet would maybe come more through a figure like Horatio, who seeks Hamlet out to tell him the truth. So you could also think about that as a question and how you might go about kind of developing a response to it. Okay, so that's